Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. Well, I'm out here once again working on the 1970 Dodge Super Bee, the Super Beast. I know it's a little corny, but I absolutely love the name. You guys saw in the last episode, put together this beast of an engine setup with a bunch of goodies from Holley. Should be pushing pretty close to about 600 horsepower. And man, a huge check off the list. But I tell you what, I'm like, today's what, July 1st? I am maybe just a little over 2 months away from needing to have this car running, driving, racing, and at the Holley Mo Party event in Bowling Green, Kentucky, along with the Ratty Saddy. And this car has a whole long ways to go, but getting the engine in the car means that it's finally time to start putting together all the systems and getting them installed. So today in this video, I hope to have the cooling system completely done with a bunch of awesome parts from my friends over at Cold Case, as well as the entire fuel system done with a ton of goodies from Holley. And I can't wait to show you guys all these parts. So we're gonna do a little bit of unboxing here. My friends over at Cold Case sent me the MOP 750-5K. And what that is actually a complete Gen 3 Hemi into a 66 to 70 B-body setup, along with the dual electric fan. So it's a 26-inch radiator, like the size of like one of the big chunky Hemi setups, and hopefully should provide all of the cooling that I need for this car. So, you know, at least today I can definitely get it in the car, get the fans mounted, all that stuff, putting off the dreaded wiring that kind of terrifies me just with having to wire a complete car start to finish here, nose to back. Yeah, different problem for a different day, but hope to see how much clearance we have here. You know, of course, with this intake plenum dumping straight into presumably where the radiator and the cooling fans and everything are going to be, could get a little interesting. So we're going to have to figure that out as well. I mean, that's what a lot of this is just real-time problem solving, making it all work. There's a million new parts going in this thing, and I'm putting it in 50-year-old technology. We're putting new technology in a 50-year-old car, and there's definitely a big learning curve with doing that. Speaking of learning curve, I have never, ever had a muscle car with EFI. So the Sniper Holley EFI kit, full fuel tank, with the pump in the tank, so none of that really loud, annoying buzzing like I can hear the entire time I'm driving the Ratty Saddy. But this is basically a complete fuel injection setup that's going to provide all the fuel that we need to supply this big O engine setup. And of course, it's going to run at a much higher pressure than what I'm used to with like the 6 to 8 PSI or so with the carbureted setup. Need a whole lot more for this here. So we're going to have to figure out all the fuel line routing, the regulator setup, filter setup, all that stuff. Gonna do that all in this video. So without further ado, we'll go ahead, open up this Cold Case radiator setup, and have a look. Alrighty guys, so I got the radiator all put together here. Now one little tiny bit of rework. I did add some bigger self-tappers here. Yeah, kind of screwed up and put this thing on a little bit crooked. So straighten that out, put some bigger ones in there, cut them off so that way they're nice and short. And man, what a sweet unit. Comes of course with all the hardware you need to put it in, as well as kind of the decorative water cap here. It's pretty killer setup. I want to say probably 3 inches deep, and yeah, hopefully all the cooling that I'm going to need for this car. Now this car, I believe, would have been fitted with the 22-inch radiator originally, so the original mountain holes are not going to work. So what I'll have to do, put it up in there, use some big vice grips or something, and kind of get it exactly where I want it, mark a couple dots, and drill a few holes, and mount it up. Alrighty, guys, so I got the full cold case radiator, cooling fans, hoses, everything hooked up. It fits like an absolute dream. And, well, as you guys can see, well, got a whole lot of other work done. Now, full transparency, kind of freaking out a little bit about the timeline, trying to get this car. I really, really want to have it in Kentucky now in less than 2 months. And, you know, taking a car from basically a bare shell to a full running, driving, racing car, and doing this stuff in my spare time while also trying to be a full-time dad and everything else that comes along with it. It's a lot, okay? And so I ended up putting out an emergency SOS call to my really good friend and buddy, call him Neighbor Jake. Everybody say hi. Say thank you to Neighbor Jake for coming over. But man, we spent about the last 3 days in here and put in a lot of time, and this car is almost ready to start. All the major stuff is pretty much done at this point. And, you know, the format of my videos typically, guys, is, you know, full step-by-step DIY tutorial, everything like that. And, you know, with this and having multiple people working on the car, it's just too hard to keep up with, while also trying to be productive and try not to sit on my ass or, you know, be messing with the camera the whole time when I have people over here, you know, spending their time over here helping me. So instead, what I'll do is that at least at a minimum of weekly, so it has been like 2 weeks since the last time I posted, I don't want to do that. I want to give you guys more frequent updates, which if you want even more frequent than weekly, check out my Instagram page. I post on there 3-4 times a week. But yeah, what I will do, guys, is that weekly, I'll go through here, show you everything that I've got going on, where we are with the build. Of course, as we get closer to starting, there will be a whole lot more filming on that. But what I will do is try my best to show you guys, like, everything that we're working on, what the issues were, what the, you know, part numbers, all that kind of stuff. So that way, if you guys are following along with this or thinking about doing this build, I'm going to hopefully give you guys all the info you need to get it done. So that said, let's go back to the cooling system real quick, show you guys the cold case setup here. You know, one thing that is really nice about this radiator setup and fan is that we have so much room here on the front. So if you guys remember back to the Tunnel Ram 440 that we put in the Ratty Satty, I had like a 1/4 inch of clearance, if that. Might have even been 1/8 of an inch of clearance between the belt drive and the cooling fan setup, and it was just way too close. I wasn't super comfortable with it. Didn't really cool that good either, so ended up having to upgrade the radiator and doing a bunch of work to that. But nonetheless, it's a great setup. And I did run an expansion tank here off this side. This is just an Amazon special expansion tank here. Nothing super crazy about it. I'm actually running the exact same setup on the Ratty Satty. But if you guys remember, that one is actually in front of the radiator support. And I may actually have to switch that one over as well. So the battery trays on the 70s are gigantic, unnecessarily huge. And they actually bolt to the firewall, and it's directly in line with that. So should have test fit this before putting that in place. So I'll be reworking that in some form or fashion there. Again, I did hop on Amazon again, bought some V-band style clamps, also bought some universal radiator hoses. I am not a huge fan of the ribbed hose look, but I am not sure what off the shelf will actually just fit this setup here. So I believe it's 1.5 inches, 1.75 inches on that side, which shouldn't be too bad. That bend down there is super, super funky. Again, I think it's maybe 1.75 inches on both. If not, it's 1.75 inches, 1.5 inches. But either way, really weird bends. The universal hose works just fine. Everything is clamped down. Everything is tight. And I mentioned, I think during the initial engine assembly, these water necks that come off of the Holley Performance belt drive kit are movable, so you can kind of swivel them in any direction that you want there. But a lot of you guys are probably looking at this big honking intake here. So one thing that is a little bit tricky, and it's not clamped on there, waiting on those clamps to come in. I've bought the wrong clamps twice in a row. Hopefully 3rd time's a charm, but they'll be here in like 2 days, so we'll get that here But running the stock throttle body here on an adapter, which then goes to the Holley EFI tall ram intake here. You know, the way that the angle of this, I knew that I'd have to have some sort of a hardcore bend. You know, if it came off the side, like what the original 641 did, have a little bit more options there. But, you know, ended up just going with a 3.5 inch 90-degree silicone tube. And then I have had this intake for probably 15 years as a K&N intake here. I want to say I had this on a Corvette or a GTO or something at one time, but I've moved multiple times with this intake, and it actually worked out perfect, and we'll go ahead and use that. So as soon as those clamps are here, I do have it, you know, fit up so that way it's a nice ways off the radiator. We shouldn't have any clearance issues at all. Clears the belt drive just fine, but for now we'll just leave it just like that. So onto the fuel system, okay? Couple things here. The install of this stuff will not be in the video, and that is because this guy right here did not weld on the freaking brackets on the bottom of the trunk pan. I'm embarrassed to even admit that, but we have this beautiful brand new Holley EFI tank with the intake pump, as well as the sending unit, all that stuff. It's an extremely nice tank. I'll show you guys that whole thing in the next video. But yeah, what's the saying? Word of the wise? I don't know. Words from a dumbass. Definitely don't undercoat your entire car without making sure you have all the brackets on there. I always install those brackets when as I'm punching out for a trunk pan. The trunk pan in this car was already kind of halfway tacked in, so didn't actually take it out of the car to mess with it very much. And yeah, price I pay for rushing, I guess. But I will be getting this car up onto the lift, scratching that off, and welding those brackets on so we can get that getting that tank mounted up into the car. From there, I've got to route all of our fuel lines here, and that is going to go up to this Snow Performance. They work with Nitrous Express. I believe they're actually the same exact company, but do have the fuel pressure regulator here, as well as, you guys can probably tell, this whole engine is already set up with all of the Holley Terminator X wiring, so all that stuff's already connected. I'm telling you guys what, don't even mess around with the stock harness. I know it's expensive, but the Holley EFI stuff is just so nice and cut to length. Everything worked out perfect. I did punch a hole here in the bottom of that silicone tube. That's why I couldn't take it completely off a minute ago. But no, the whole setup is just absolutely perfect length. My only gripe, I did have to add a little bit more loom on here because there are some exposed wires that I just wasn't a big fan of. But man, aside from that, couldn't ask for better there. So I've already got my fuel line here running to the fuel rail. Comes around on this side. This is a return style regulator, so we'll be running 2 fuel lines up here, one for pressure and return. And once we get the brackets on the bottom, get the tank in the car, could then go ahead and route all the plumbing for the fuel system. A lot of you guys are probably looking at this setup here. It's just there's a company on Amazon. They sell a whole bunch of different fittings and stuff. It's called Evil Energy. It's very cheap stuff, not very expensive. They sell this catch can setup, I want to say, for like 80 or 90 bucks. It's all -10 lines here to the ports on the Holley intake setup. And yeah, pretty straightforward, pretty easy there. Now, one of the things that a lot of you guys were questioning and giving me a whole bunch of shit about was, why am I choking off my engine running the manifolds that are on here? So I do have Hooker cast manifolds. I really was nervous about the overall clearance of the engine with the suspension and everything like that. I have miles of clearance, no issues at all. So I ended up caving, and I bought a full TTI 2-inch header setup. Unfortunately, they're in production right now. They are, I believe, at the coaters. They're going to ship here like August 1st. So hopefully that first week of August, we can go ahead, get the headers in the car, and plug in our O2 sensor, which is about the only piece of wiring that's left aside from this map sensor here. I do have an adapter, I think, coming tomorrow, and that just plugs in here to the back side of the intake. Aside from that, all of the wiring on the front end that's engine related whatsoever is connected, is ready to go, and it is ready to fire up. So again, huge shout out, huge thank you, neighbor Jake. Really, really appreciate it. I can't wait to do some big smoky burnouts with him after this thing is on the road. So that pretty much recaps all the engine stuff. I already showed you guys the full belt drive and the whole Holley setup here in the front. It's very expensive, but very, very nice. Power steering. Okay, so this car with the QA1 suspension is running a full power rack and pinion setup. So I did go ahead, I cut this bar to length here just to give me plenty of room for the headers. I did not weld on the shaft right here. You guys can see spinning the steering wheel. So once we get the headers in there, as long as everything clears, should be able to go ahead and weld this shaft right here onto the universal, and from that point can go ahead, throw in the set screws, and it'll pretty much be set up and ready to go. Now, on the topic of steering, if you guys are building a 1970 B-body in general, good luck finding a steering column. I think I bought the only one on eBay, so if you guys are watching that, I'm sorry, I did buy it. It cost me like $800 for a used steering column. I did get it from, I believe, Norm's Performance Parts, so thank you guys for at least having it and selling it. But man, super expensive. And then to actually get it to fit onto the power rack kit, I had to actually chop off the bottom half, which I know is sacrilegious because there's a limited number of these columns out there. They do reproduce them, but they're like $1,200 to buy an I Did It column, or like I think it's Flaming River. There's some companies that do make this stuff, but you know, the big difference with the 70 column, of course, key's actually here on the column itself, and you know, there are a couple other little subtle differences. And then also to make sure I get it for a floor shift, and yeah, kind of a big pain, but I do have it. I also have a steering wheel on the way for this thing, and as you guys can tell, I am going with the black interior on this. So still a little bit undecided on exterior color. A lot of you guys have noticed that a lot of these panels are beige. This is all epoxy primer. It's not gonna stay on. Really, you know, there's been so much metal work that's been done on this car that I did not want to have to redo anything. So I went ahead, sanded it all down, got it into epoxy. The beige, not really my thing. I know I've kind of gone back and forth on that, but I think seeing more and more of the car in beige, no. So throw your suggestions in the comments below with what you guys think we should do. Nothing's really changed here on the inside. I did get more of the car in epoxy here. You guys can see the spaghetti mess of wiring that's underneath the dash. It does look a little bit out of control. There's so much stuff. I did go with the Speedway. I think it's a 22 circuit universal kit. It's like $200. It's not bad at all. But there's a lot of things, power door locks to all sorts of other stuff that I'm not going to be using. So a lot of that wiring is actually just going to be rolled up and tucked up underneath the dash. Speaking of the dash, one of the things that I've been so excited to show you guys is that this car is getting the full 12-inch Holley digital dash. And what's really nice too is that it all interfaces with the Terminator X kit. And I'll just give you guys a little sneak peek, because of course it's not in the car yet, but there it is, man. It's gonna be freaking awesome. You guys can see here kind of what that looks like, but basically I can do all my tuning, full customization with all the gauges. Again, it all works with that Terminator kit, so it's really plug and play, makes things very, very easy, and hopefully we'll have that in here in the next week or two. While I'm on the back side of the car here, whole bunch of changes here too. Again, told you guys, we got so much freaking work done on this thing. It's frankly amazing me of what it looks like. So first and foremost, huge shout out, thank you, Vanessa from 5 Point Parts was able to source me this tail panel piece. Now I know this is not from an original Super Bee because it doesn't have the red stripe around the whole thing. But what I did learn is that the back end of this car here is from a Coronet RT, I believe. And so it originally had that big black piece across the back, because again, this tail panel is the donor piece that had the back sections of the rear quarters. And so I ended up having to fill a whole bunch of those holes, having to drill out the entire thing. Good luck finding any of the hardware to mount any of this stuff. It is not available at all. So I ended up finding some quarter 20 T-slot hardware that we just ended up using that. Drilled fewer holes than what we needed. And man, this thing is rock solid, super secure in the car. course, quarter panel extensions are in, tail lights are in. None of these are wired yet. As we were wiring up the engine and just all the stuff, I was like, all right, before we do the whole wiring, let's just get this thing running first and make sure that's all squared away. And then system by system, we'll work through and get all the lights and the turn signals and running lights and all that stuff all hooked up at that point. Because again, it is a universal kit, so got some figuring out to do with all of that. Original rear bumper, which frankly is kind of a disaster, is on the car. It is not nice, it is not clean. It is straight, which is a plus, I guess, but it will need to eventually be re-chromed. But you know what, with the rest of this car kind of being a shit box to start with, it's kind of fitting, and it does look pretty good on there. Like I mentioned, everything here with, you know, getting the beige, that's all on the car. You know, with me having a couple extra weeks, I may go ahead, get the doors, get the front fenders off this car, get those blasted, and just get those in epoxy. I'm not doing any mud work at all, you guys, on this thing, just getting it into epoxy, and really from there, I can work it. But I tell you guys what, with how much cutting and sectioning and a bunch of just work that was done on these, it looks pretty damn good. Look at those door gaps, you guys. My goodness. I'm really happy with how everything's going so far. Man, guys, what else? You know, I think that pretty much recaps everything. Fuel system, engine wiring, you know, the steering. On to the brakes. So I am going with the full power Wilwood master and booster and all that kind of stuff with this. A couple things that I learned with that. Number one, I definitely don't have the clearance to run the proportioning valve on the driver's side, or the outside, I guess. So I ended up having to wait for the bracket to come in for this, which then I had to make my own brake lines to go with that. And I did plan on going with the nickel copper brake lines on this car, so I think it looks freaking awesome in there. But yeah, I got some modification to do the firewall, to the original brace and the bracket there, and then of course getting the booster and all this stuff in with 0 instructions. That is a huge gripe, or about the biggest gripe that I've had the last day or so, is that you know, the company that I did buy that full setup from, I can't even find a car that has that setup in it, and supposedly it's made for this car. I think everything's going to fit okay, but 0 instructions, can't find them anywhere whatsoever. So the only instructions I can find is if you're just going to go to a you know, powered booster setup, but nothing the Wilwood specific, nothing with the proportioning valve, nothing with, you know, the pedal ratios and all that kind of stuff. That's just not out there. So a lot of figuring out to do with that, which has been a little bit frustrating. But once I get that into the car for the last time, I can go ahead and bench bleed that whole setup, and then can actually start routing my brake lines, which I'm gonna have to make from scratch for the entire car. So yeah, got a whole lot of work to do with that. Again, you know, this is basically a full car. I mean, I'm building an entire car in the next month and a half. So realistically, probably about the next 2 to 3 weeks, because I think this is going to be done a whole lot sooner than what I was originally thinking. Coming up too, guys, I've got green bearings going on my rear axles, so I got to pop those out, take them to a buddy's place, and cut off the old bearings, get the new ones pressed on. So I've got those here. Once I get those finished up, can go ahead and measure for my wheel and tire combination. We'll be going with billet specialties again, just like we did on the Sadie. Got some really cool ideas. We're going to be fitting some giant wheels under the rear end of this car especially, but a really nice set in the front too. But man, still got work to do with fitting the trunk on and getting that all put into place. I am going to be using Zeus fasteners all the way around that, as well as the hood. I do have the hood scoop coming, which is it's the LO23 Hemi style scoop. So that should be here, I think, tomorrow. So man, it's like every day is like Christmas. We got more and more boxes coming here to the house. The FedEx, UPS, and Amazon drivers are probably wondering what the hell is going on over here, because they've been here a whole lot. I think actually all 3 of my dumpsters right now are just filled up with only cardboard. So yeah, but the good thing is I think all the big expenses are taken care of at this point, with the exception of the wheels and tires. I do have a really nice set of original black seats that are going in this car. Got to figure out seat belts and little things like that. Little but very important things, I should say. But man, guys, I think that's going to about wrap up this update for you. Again, you know, as soon as I get done with this and get this video uploaded, be right back out here again, just working away and trying to chip more and more off the list here. So again, in the next week, hopefully fuel system will be totally done, dash will be in, most likely we'll have some interior bits in, and then start the reassembly. Got full glass to put back in the car and everything else. So yeah, whole lot of work to do. And tell you what, if you guys would like to support the channel, I do have a bunch of merch that's available. Check out the link below. It would definitely help me out. Every dollar from the merch sales goes right back into the car. And yeah, we'll hopefully speed this thing up along even faster. So until next time, guys, take care. Appreciate you guys all watching. And I'll see you again next week. See ya.